Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again. Thank you very, very much as always for taking the time to tune in today. Today I'm joined by sexual empowerment coach, sex educator and speaker Jocelyn Silva, who is here to discuss her expertise in confidence and self-worth in relationships and in life in general. Jocelyn is first generation Mexican Salvadorian Latina unicorn who supports people of all genders, including couples, to heal their sexual shame, reconnect with their sexual essence, and lead a pleasure-filled life. Jocelyn does this through one-on-one coaching as well as virtual and in-person workshops and group coaching programs. Growing up in a very conservative Catholic household created so much shame around Jocelyn's sexuality in her formative years, so much so that she spent a very long time healing through that to become the most sexually empowered version of herself. Jocelyn's purpose in life is to support others doing the very same thing. Jocelyn is a strong believer that once you are able to embrace your sexuality fully and stand in your sexual power, everything else in life becomes easier to handle. Jocelyn says that sex is almost never the issue in relationships or in life, and it is the symptom of living a life out of alignment. Getting back into full integral alignment is the goal of Jocelyn's coaching. I have to say that's probably the most I have said sex and sexual in the one period of time in my entire life. Jocelyn, thank you very, very much for joining me today. It's an honour to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I purposefully wrote the bio so that you had to say sex 15 times.
Well, it
Just
absolutely worked. I love it. You know, one of the great things about today's conversation is it's not a topic that I have covered a lot in my life, but when we were chatting previously about coming on the show and just kind of getting to know each other a wee bit, it was such a natural conversation that we had. Not that I had a personal stigma around it, or I didn't think I did anyway, but it was just so it flowed so easily and so readily for me. So it makes me even more excited to have the conversation today. So lots to unpack in terms of your bio, and what I'd like to do is kind of start at the beginning almost, about your formative years, and if you could tell me a bit about your journey and when the shame around your sexuality became a prevalent factor in your life, when it became known that that's what you were enduring.
yeah, yeah. So, as you said, I'm first generation Latina, right? So I was born and raised in Los Angeles, but my mom is from El Salvador and my dad's from Mexico, right? So, the thing about, I think, first generation individuals is that we tend to be very religious, very Catholic, right? At least in my home, that was the truth. And so I had a mother that was very, very religious. Like growing up, I was an altar server in church. We went to Catholic school. I was very involved in my parish, and the messaging I received around sex and sexuality growing up was very negative, right? It was like sex is a sin, masturbation is a sin. If you have sex before you get married, you're going to go to hell. And if you have sex after you get married, it's only for procreation, right? Not for pleasure or enjoyment.
Mhm.
And I was a very curious and at a very young age, I was very curious about sexuality, right? Like I've always been kind of like a horny person in general. So
Yeah.
I think that I always felt really awful about my natural urges with all of the messaging that I received at home and at school and at church. Mhm.
Yeah. And when did that become an issue for you? Like when did you start to say, and I'm not putting words in your mouth here, but in terms of like I'm different from other people, I'm not respecting the family values, I'm disrespecting the church. Like how did that were there pivotal moments within that where you kind of thought, this is going to go bad?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, so when I was 16 years old, I started dating this boy that I met on MySpace because at that time MySpace was big.
Okay.
And yeah, we started dating. We met in person. We really liked each other. And as any other 16-year-old, person, kid, teenager would do, like when we hung out, things would get hot and heavy sometimes, right? And he was also very religious. It's actually a very confusing time. I wanted to be a nun and he wanted to be a priest, which was
Right.
very bizarre now, looking back on it, because we would do these like things that we knew were sins, and then right before doing them he would say, okay, we're gonna do this, but like we need to like pray 3 rosaries this week, we need to make sure we go to confession, and then we're gonna like give a sacrifice, right? So our sacrifices would be that we wouldn't talk for a whole day, and that was like our offering to God for having sinned. And
Right.
I found myself in like this very bizarre cycle doing these things. And it got to the point where I was going to confession. For those of you that don't know what confession is, it's a practice by Catholics when you go and sit next to a priest and you tell him all your sins and he absolves you of your sins. And typically they advise that you do it once a year. I was going once a week at age 16, right? And it wasn't until a priest literally came up to me and said, hey, you don't need to come once a week. Like, you can come once a year, you'll be fine. And I was just like, I remember telling the priest, no, no, you don't understand. Like, I'm going to go to hell. I don't want to go to hell. Like, I'm doing really bad things. And the priest looked at me and said, please don't worry about that. You can come once a year, you're fine. And I think that when he said that to me, there was like this moment where I'm like, wow, even a Catholic priest thinks I'm overdoing it. Like, he probably looked at me saying, poor girl, she's 16 and she like can't live her life, right? So after that, I just felt awful about myself and I slipped into a really dark depression when I was 17 years old. I remember in high school, I wouldn't talk to anybody. I like stopped hanging out with my friends. I would eat lunch in the chapel because I genuinely thought if I hang out with people, they're going to make me sin. And if I sin, I'm going to hell. And so that's when I realized, okay, this is a problem. I don't think this is normal. It's not normal for 16 and a seven, like for a girl of my age to just completely isolate herself out of the fear of being a human, essentially. Right. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I recall when we were chatting before, I was really interested in, where the fear came from, where the shame came from, and you had explained it was literally explained to you that this, you make no mistake about this is a sin. You are a bad person. You are not serving your God if you engage in this. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
yeah, I mean, my mother, and here's the thing is that at that time I didn't understand a lot. Now that I'm an adult, I feel like I have so much compassion for my mom because people don't realize like your parents were kids too, right? And there's such thing as intergenerational trauma, right? And so when your parents, your grandparents, your great grandparents have experienced have had traumatic situations happen in their life, that does affect you, right? And so for my mother, she's a survivor of multiple forms of abuse, right? Was very, very poor in her country of El Salvador.
Mhm.
Um, and she carried a lot of fear around intimacy, right? So when she had her only girl, me, of course, she put all that fear on me, right? And wanted to protect me at all costs because she didn't want me to go through what she went through,
Right.
which beautiful, right? I came from a place of love, but the results of that were me just feeling like I could never really fully be myself, right? Always feeling like I had to hide or pretend to be somebody else. Um, and that was really, really hard. That was hard. And then especially going to church and then hearing the same messages, right? That sex is bad, sex is sin, and going to Catholic school, right?
Mhm.
It was very confusing and hurtful. Yeah.
Yeah. When did you realize that there was such a thing as a sexual healing journey, and how did you join that journey? How did you embark on the journey is probably a better way to say it.
Yeah, I find I feel like I'm very, very fortunate with how my sexual empowerment journey began. It was very, very beautiful. So when I turned 18, I had another boyfriend, and he was such a wonderful guy, like such a sweetheart. And yeah, before that, I had done sexual things, but I had never, gone all the way. And so I fell in love with him and I said, I think I'm ready to do this thing. And I remember like lit candles and lit incense and played music and just made this really beautiful kind of environment for me.
Yeah.
And the first time I had sex, it was awful. Don't get me wrong, like the sex itself was not great. It usually isn't. But the connection and how I felt so loved and cherished by this person. And I just thought to myself, who the hell said sex is a bad thing? This is beautiful. Like, I was like, this is amazing. Right. And finally, eventually sex started to feel pleasurable for me. And then I was like, holy moly, I've been lied to my whole life. Like, this is awesome. Right. I'm with someone
Yeah.
that cherishes me and loves me. This is pleasurable. It feels great. I feel great about myself. And that's when I became obsessed with learning more about sex. Like, I was going to college at the time. I got involved in the feminist club. I got involved in the Queer Alliance. I was taking a human sexuality class and a social psychology class. And I just wanted to learn all about it because I just felt so betrayed. I felt
Mm.
like I had been lied to my entire life. It really felt like this moment of, oh my God, my entire life up until this point has been a lie. Like, and
Yeah.
I still remember I went into my professor's office, like crying, just like, I was just like, I don't understand. And then she looked at me, she's like, I'm so happy you finally saw the light. Pretty much telling me that, like, you've been lied to. And I felt very lied to. So that was, I think, the first time. I know that was the first time that I was like, I want to work towards getting to a place where I feel 100% comfortable and I want to help others get there too.
Yeah, it's such a powerful story of self-empowerment, of taking the information that you have at the time and doing something valuable and meaningful for you to be able to say, I need to understand this better, which obviously later in life manifests itself into your ability to be able to help other people do the exact same. Not everyone would do that. That could and probably does cause a lot more confusion for people saying, wait a second, these are the stories and narratives that have been ingrained in me, but this is the experience I've been having. I have to push that down even more because this is just too much. It seemed to be a liberating experience for you at the time to then create this thirst for knowledge that you then went and sought the information that you sought.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I don't know what was inside of me. I just felt angry at the time. I was, 18, 19, 20, and I just felt angry at my mom, angry at the church,
Yeah.
angry at all of, my high school years just feeling like an awful person for
Mm.
just being a normal teenager,
Yeah.
right? Um, I had a lot of anger at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did that manifest itself into the relationship with your parents, with your mum specifically? Did you get an opportunity to talk about it at the time?
Well, so yeah, it was complicated. So my mom told me, when you have sex for the first time, please let me know. I would love to be a part of that journey with you. And I thought, oh, that's awesome. So I told her, I was like, oh, I'm having, I had sex with my partner. And she wrote me a letter pretty much saying, like, she gave me the silent treatment for a month. And then she wrote me a letter saying, I don't agree with your life choices, but I still love you. And I never want to talk about this again.
Oh,
So she
wow.
shamed me, right? It was like this feeling of like, oh man, I did the wrong thing. And she's like, I just never thought you'd do this so young. And it was pretty awful. I thought that she was a safe person. I thought she was trying to be a safe person, and then she wasn't. So for 7 years, from the time I was like 18 to 25, we had a very tumultuous relationship. Like,
Yeah.
I was just angry at her all the time. She was angry at me all the time. We couldn't see eye to eye, couldn't speak to her. I stopped going to church. I didn't want to go to church. I wanted nothing to do with Catholicism or anything that had to do with that. And when I was around 25, I was dating someone else who encouraged me to open up a relationship with my mom. And they said, you should really do this. Like, I think you should give your mom a chance. And so I said, okay, fine. And it hasn't been easy. I think that my mother is a person that has a very good heart. I think
Mhm.
her heart is in the right place. I just think oftentimes she battles a lot with doing the right thing, knowing what the right thing is to do, and being a product of her environment.
Yeah.
Right. So, but one of the things I absolutely adore about my mother, and I think something that I have from her, is that no matter what, she always strives to be a better person. Now we have a pretty good relationship, but she's
Yeah.
someone that, like, if she needs help, she's going to go to therapy. I mean, when she was pregnant with me, she was going to Overeaters Anonymous, right? She was in a 12-step program.
Right.
I still actually remember, it's funny, even though she told me sex was a sin, I got to give her some credit that she did try. She did try. Because I remember when I was like 12 years old, I went to a therapist. She was going to a therapist, and the therapist talked to me about my body changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like a little weird because an older man telling me, like, this is what's going to happen to your body. But, thinking back on, and she also told me a lot about like consent and, so things like that. I got to give her the credit that, like, she really did try, to support me in that way. Um, but anyways, but yeah, so now we have a pretty good relationship. It hasn't been easy. It's had a lot of its ups and downs, especially
Yeah.
since her and I are such different people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I was actually talking to someone about this yesterday, coming from a heart-centered approach when dealing with other people, whether it's loved ones, whether it's clients, whether it's the general public, colleagues, friends, whatever. It doesn't matter, but coming from an angle of saying they're doing the best that they can, with what they have. And if they could do better, they would do better. That kind of thing. It's easy to say that, certainly in retrospect or in hindsight, in terms of what you're doing. But it sounds like you're in a space now of acceptance of who she is, what she was trying to do, what she actually did, the impact of what she did, and then the ability to be able to overcome that, to get to a spot of positivity within the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think she wants to be the way that she is. I think that there's a big part of her that wishes things in her life had been different. And
Mm.
I have so much compassion for her now.
Yeah.
And I still think that we're very different people. It's kind of hard
Yeah.
to have conversations with her because she's very straight-laced, like married one man, has only been with one man, does everything by the book. She's very proud of that. And I
Yeah.
think that that's actually the thing that I don't like. That's like not who I am, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah, it really is. So, in terms of your work as a sexual empowerment
Mhm.
coach, how do you help individuals build confidence in their self-worth, and particularly in their relationships and their personal lives?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Well, it definitely depends on the client. I work with clients that have a lot of different concerns when it comes to intimacy and their sexuality,
Mm.
right? But ultimately, building confidence, what I've learned in my life is that it comes down to doing something uncomfortable a million times until it becomes comfortable. Once you gain experience doing a thing, you gain confidence, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people think that confidence comes from a mindset or just like out of thin air, right? But confidence comes from action. And the
Yeah.
thing is, when someone is stuck in shame or when they're stuck in anxiety or fear, right, they usually don't take action because they allow for those feelings to hold them back, right? So a lot of my coaching involves understanding where are the barriers of
Mhm.
where my clients are and where they want to be. So I'll give you an example. If someone comes to me and says, I've never had an orgasm and I don't even know where to begin, right?
Yeah.
First, I gauge, okay, where are they on this journey? Do they self pleasure and they just haven't had an orgasm? Do they understand their sexual anatomy? Or have they just never done anything ever? And I've had clients from all over the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
So then once I gauge where they're at on that journey, then I support them and give them homework assignments to get them there, right? So, for example, if someone comes to me and says, I know nothing, then we'll start with like, okay, let's learn about sexual anatomy. This is where the clitoris is. This is where the
Mhm.
vagina is, or this is where the frenulum is. This is where the shaft of the penis is, et cetera, whatever it is that I'm teaching them, right?
Yeah.
And then once I understand sexual anatomy, understand their own sexual anatomy. So there's these ceremonies that I do with my female clients called the yoni gazing ceremony, where we actually take a mirror and we look at our vulvas together.
Okay.
Because I truly believe that the more you know about yourself, the more confident you become about your sexuality, right?
Yeah.
So getting to know their own bodies, and then slowly getting them on a practice of self pleasure, right?
Mhm.
Making time for themselves, buying a sex toy, using their hands, using some type of stimulus that's going to support them in arousal, right? Whatever that may be. Now, through this process, though, as you said in my bio earlier, I don't believe that sexual issues are innately sexual. I think a lot of sexual issues come from different parts of our lives. So through this process, what tends to happen is we realize like, oh wow, there's a lot more going on here than just not being able to orgasm. Usually like some things that would come up are I'm a mother with three kids and a husband, and my mind is racing. I can never relax enough to experience pleasure, right?
Yeah.
Or if someone comes to me and says, I have suffered through sexual trauma. And so for me, sexuality is something that I become repulsed by. So
Mm.
the thought of having an orgasm, my body can't relax enough to get there,
Yeah.
right? So it's all of these other kind of themes that come up, which is why I'm obsessed with sexuality because it's a microcosm of all things human, right? We
Yeah.
think we're dealing with one very superficial thing, which is like the orgasm, but actually, in dealing with that, we're peeling these layers that are really holding people back from being their most authentic and joyful selves.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And from a general coaching perspective, not just specific to sexual therapy or anything in that realm, a lot of times, exactly as you say, Jocelyn, that the problem isn't the problem. Let's work to get to the problem, and different clients take different journeys to get there at that particular point. And I love, that the bedroom being the microcosm of your life. We talked about that prior to recording, and it's so powerful. What we also talked about was the deep rooted challenges that some couples or people that maybe aren't in a relationship right now have with communication,
Mhm.
and communication being a massive barrier, certainly in terms of understanding each other's sexual preferences and desires and wants and needs and do's and don'ts. Can you tell me a bit more about some of the major or key themes of communication that you see across your client groups?
Yeah, so I would say the most basic one is what do you communicate? Like, what do you talk about, right? So
Yeah.
if someone is feeling held back in their sexual and intimate life, oftentimes they don't even know who they are as sexual beings,
Yeah.
right? So they get stuck on, I know I'm supposed to talk about sex, but like, what do I even say? Right. So
Mhm.
a lot of the coaching that I do is like supporting my clients and turning their desires into words, turning
Yeah.
their boundaries into words, right? Because they have such a hard time understanding the concept of what it is that they enjoy, right? So
Mhm.
that's one barrier. Another one that is very challenging, which I am actually guilty of as well, is communicating in a way that doesn't hurt your partner,
Yeah.
right? So communicating frustrations, communicating concerns, communicating boundaries, right? A lot of clients that I work with are so scared of hurting their partner's feelings, right?
Mhm.
And typically this comes from a place of because it either comes out at a time of frustration and anger, right? Where maybe you say things that you regret.
Mm.
Or just like being afraid of hurting your partner's feelings because you love them, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
hurt them, even though what you want to tell them is really nothing to do with them, right? Sometimes it could just be a boundary of I don't want to have sex at night, right? But
Yeah.
oh, I'm scared of hurting my partner's feelings because they love having sex at night. Like crap, how do I reconcile that, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's one another communication barrier. Let me think. I would say those two sum up a lot of what I deal with communication. Just like the fear of hurting the other person, sitting in the discomfort of their disappointment, right?
Yeah.
And then just simply not knowing how or what to communicate.
Yeah, because there's no playbook for that, really. How do you get taught? You certainly get taught certain communication styles or skills as you grow up just by living, maybe not a literal class of this is the do's and don'ts, but as you navigate school, and you're taught to kind of sit there, don't swear and don't be disrespectful and keep your hands to yourself and don't say mean things to your peer group and things like that. So there's certain things that are somewhat innate as you grow up, but how would you learn to be able to tactfully say something from a place of comfort, to say, this is what's going on for me right now. This is how it's going to manifest itself into our relationship. This is how I feel today. This is what is or is not going to happen today. Like, those sorts of things. When I say all that out loud, it feels a bit clunky just as I'm explaining what my thought pattern is on that. So trying to be as comfortable as you can within yourself to then say, I have something I need to talk to you about without making it sound like a big deal where the person goes, oh dear, what's coming next? To a case of, I just don't feel like it today. If you don't mind, could we just have a wee bit of distance or something like that? And as you say, like a microcosm for life. If you then try transport that into the workplace or into the family space, you know, do you still struggle with the same things where you're kind of like, I just don't know how to express myself authentically as I'm trying to tell you what I need in order for this to be a success as we go forward? And do you experience those aha or breakthrough moments with clients where they say, this has been absolutely sage advice for the bedroom, but let me tell you about an experience I had when I was at work?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I mean, it's funny because I actually just got my life coaching certification
Oh,
because
congratulations.
at some point with several clients, it starts as sex coaching and then it ends with life coaching. So I'll
Yeah.
give you some examples. I've had one client that moved out of her parents' house after working with me, right? She just felt this empowerment to like leave a home that wasn't working for her. I've had
Yeah.
clients who've quit their jobs after working with me. I've had clients who've left relationships after working with me, gotten married after working with me, right? Like all of these big life decisions that they felt empowered enough to make through becoming more sexually empowered. But yeah, my clients tell me all the time, oh my God, like even at work, I feel more bold. I feel like more comfortable expressing myself, or with my mother, I set a boundary and I feel really like proud of that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, 100%. It bleeds into all areas of your life. That's why I tell people like going on this journey is going to change your life radically. Not just your sex life, like your life in general will be completely different.
Yeah. Do you deal with any stigmas around, I have this kind of cartoon vision in my head
Mhm.
that, I'll give you an example. I'll take a half step back. Sometimes when I'm talking to people about coaching, general life, performance, leadership coaching, the type and style that I do, there's a little bit of a distance that's created if they're not into it, they don't really understand it, and it sounds like something kind of foo-foo or woo-woo, and they're just going to kind of stay away from it. And then I'm in this trying to convince a person, listen, everyone needs this. Everyone, myself included, needs this to be able to be more self-aware, to be able to make more informed, direct choices that are going to impact their life in a positive way, to establish boundaries, to do whatever it is they need to do that's maybe holding them back. Add a layer in of talking about sex in the way that you so freely do is not super mainstream for everyone. So coaching can make people kind of feel a little bit sticky and icky. Add in the layer of coaching. So I have this cartoon vision in my head of people coming to your office or your workplace or dialing into to an online session with you, like with a disguise on, and they're kind of cloak and dagger. They kind of get in and they say, right, okay, no one's seen me come in. I'm going to go out the back entrance here, and I'll take a different exit path or something like that. Do you feel that stigma, or when people come to you, they've already got that kind of worked out and they're saying, I'm ready to start talking about this. This is something material for me?
A little bit of both, right? I mean, I actually just had a connection call 2 days ago with an individual, and every other sentence he just kept saying, "Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed,"
Right.
right? And I really had to reassure him and be like, "There's nothing embarrassing about this. Like, I truly believe that every single human being on this planet has had intimacy issues at least at one point of their life."
Yeah.
One point. Whether it was because you couldn't have an erection or because you were insecure about your body or because you couldn't communicate yourself, like every single human being has had an intimacy issue at least at one point of their life. Even
Yeah.
me as a sex coach, I find myself with new issues arising in my personal life. And I'm like, wow, I didn't think I would have to deal with this, you know?
Yeah.
But here I am dealing with it. And I think that that actually supports me in being compassionate towards my clients when I see that, like, they feel that shame or that like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. And just reassure them you're not alone, right? So it's a
Yeah.
mix. Sometimes I get individuals that just feel like mortified at the fact that they're coming to me. And then sometimes I get individuals that are like you say, ready, right? They're like,
Mm.
I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to go. Like I'm tired of like hiding this. I really need to fix this. It's like ruining my life, right?
Yeah.
And so a really big part of supporting my clients in feeling comfortable about this is, and I learned this when I worked at an adult store. I was a manager of a sex shop in Los Angeles for several years. And what I realized is that if I speak about it in a very matter of fact, casual, normal type of way, people's comfort level suddenly goes, like they suddenly feel more comfortable, right? Because if I'm like whispering, or if I'm like, stuttering, or if I'm like, oh, down there, making weird, like,
Yeah.
but if I can just very calmly be like, oh, you've never had an orgasm, tell me more about that. What about an orgasm excites you, right? Just like if, oh, the sun is out today. How beautiful. You want to go to the beach? You know what I mean? Like if you
Yeah.
just speak about it in the same tone that you would any other subject, suddenly the people you speak with start to become a lot more comfortable because they realize like, oh, you're normalizing this conversation, like we're talking about the weather and like using the same tone that we talk about the weather, talking about sex, right? So that
Yeah.
supports people in feeling more comfortable.
Absolutely, and I alluded to that earlier. I had the exact same experience with you beforehand. I had no idea how I was going to feel about it at all, and then we were conversing the exact way that we're conversing right now. Is so natural, and taking away any awkwardness or any potential or perceived shame or any challenges that people would be approaching for that. So in terms of, if someone doesn't know where to start, if they're listening to this or watching this and saying, cool story, I don't know if that's me, or cool story, that might be me, but there's zero chance I'm going to speak with anyone else about it. I'll just continue to Google when I can, and then erase my browse history after I do that, or whatever. Like, what would be your recommended first or early stage steps that someone would take to see whether speaking to a sexual empowerment coach would be something that would be beneficial to them?
Yeah. um I think everyone, well, here's the thing, everyone is different, right? I don't believe that coaching and therapy is for everyone.
Yeah,
Like it just isn't, right? Some people are better at reading books and then practicing. Some people are better at Googling things and figuring out, watching YouTube videos, right? So I would say for individuals, just kind of figure out what your favorite way of learning is
mm,
and what works for you. And just start with that. If you enjoy reading, start reading books on sexuality. If you enjoy talking, right? Or if you need that accountability partner who's going to support you and guide you, hire a coach,
yeah,
right? I think that's one of the biggest benefits of having a coach is that it gives you that accountability and that guide. And some people just need to be told what to do. Like, I don't know
yeah,
what to do. Can you please help? Right? Some people hate to be told what to do. So it really just depends on the individual, right? But I would say like if you're figuring out like, oh man, this is something I really need to work on, figure out the way that you like to consume information. Start with that. And then if you get to a point where you say, okay, I actually feel like I need some accountability, I actually feel like I need someone to kind of hold my hand a little bit, then definitely book a call with a sexual empowerment coach, a sex coach, intimacy coach, sex therapist, right? Whatever you feel is going to fit your needs best.
yeah. And in
Mhm.
terms of the offerings that you have, I'd mentioned in your bio that you have one-on-one coaching, you do relationship coaching, you have coaching programs as well. Can you tell me a bit more about the various offerings that you have?
Yeah, so I do one-on-one coaching, and I work with all individuals of all gender identities and sexual orientations. I also do couples counseling, so couples coaching. Um, Couples, I love working with couples. It's a lot of fun. So, mediating conversations, supporting couples in reaching their intimacy goals, right? And then aside from that, I also have a group coaching program called the Pleasure Playground. It's a 10-month group coaching program, pretty much A through Z on all things sexuality. It ends in July. So if folks want to join before then, they still get about 3 to 4 months left of the program. And all the sessions are recorded and they're all uploaded in the community space. So that's available too. In a few weeks, I'll be relaunching one of my favorite programs that I created called Shameless Desire. It's a program specifically based around sexual shame. So that's a really great one that I really enjoyed too. And that one's all live, all virtual, and none of the sessions are recorded for that one because in order for you to heal from shame, you need to talk about the things that you're ashamed of. So a lot of that program is talking and sharing, and I, don't want to record that. I want people to feel free to just be able to share and talk about whatever is in their heart and on their minds.
Yeah, and that's such a powerfully tailored way or medium of expression of of what's needed for that specific genre of people or people in that space and the ability, because I know some people would say there is zero chance I'm coming live, there is zero chance I'm talking about this in a group, I'll watch the recording and I'll be okay. That's back to your preferences of learning, going forward with a little bit of comfort zone added in there. I'm just going to stay where I am, this is kind of cool. Whereas saying this is a live conversation, it will happen once and once only, and obviously it's part of the program as you go forward, and you don't have to worry about anyone recording it. This is just be in the moment, be present, and come with whatever it is you need. That's such a it's such a special way of connecting and understanding what people need to be able to continue on their healing journey. That's fantastic. Good for you. So in terms of this podcast, as you know, this is called The Best You, a coaching podcast, or the interview series part of the coaching podcast. What is one regular practice that Jocelyn employs to give her the best opportunity to be the best version of herself?
So I saw this question that you had. You sent me the question, and I couldn't think of one. I can think of three. And I think I
Okay,
want to share all three because I think
excellent.
all three are equally important to me.
Yeah,
So the first one is gratitude.
yeah,
I used to have a very solid gratitude practice, and I stopped for a couple of years and I've just re-implemented it. And it has been such a beautiful game changer. I mean, waking up every morning and just even writing in my gratitude journal, three things I'm grateful for, the highlights of my day, what would make my day great, have the 5 minute journal is really big for me. So gratitude is one. So daily gratitude practice. The second one is exercise. I love fitness. So going to the gym, going for walks, stretching, right? That's a daily practice that I really, really value and appreciate, right? And then the third one is learning. I love learning something new, reading new books. Right now, I just hired a handstand coach who's teaching me how to do handstands, right? And so
yeah,
I think that that's a daily practice that I encourage everyone to do. It's funny, I mean, I guess I never labeled it like this. I've always been someone who'd like to learn new skills.
yeah.
Um, but then like when I met my partner and he's like, I like to learn, I didn't realize like, holy shit, I like to learn too. So
Yeah.
learning something new every day is something that really excites me.
Fabulous. Excellent. Before I let you go, Jocelyn, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah. So you can go on my website, www.jocelynsilva.com. It's right here.
Yeah.
Also, my Instagram at I am Jocelyn Silva. Instagram is a little iffy with censorship. So I would say if you want to learn more about me, definitely check out my website. I'll be posting a lot more content there as well. And if you're interested in working with me on my website, you can schedule a connection call right from the website, or you can send me an email through the contact page on my website as well.
Wonderful. I love the terminology you use, connection call.
Yeah.
It's so inviting and welcoming at the same time. It takes away any kind of mechanical feel to it, so and then that's the experience that people will absolutely have with you, because that's the experience I feel that I've had with you, and I'm sure the listeners and viewers will have it as well. Jocelyn, thank you very much for taking me out of my comfort zone today. Thank you very much for being so open to the conversation and for sharing what you shared. That we could literally talk about this for hours and hours and hours and still be scratching the surface. So maybe we'll get a chance to do this again. But thank you very, very much for taking the time.
Yay, thank you, Gary. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Hello again. Thanks again for tuning in to this episode, and I do hope that you found it valuable and gained some insights. I do have an ask for you. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would absolutely love it if you would connect with me on my socials, and that's at LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search for my name and do whatever it is you need to do there to follow me and stay updated with all the latest content, tips, and discussions. And for any more resources that you're looking for, feel free to visit my website, garygillen.com. And while you're there, you can book a free, no obligation 30-minute coaching call directly with me through the site. Whether you're looking to enhance your performance or tackle a new challenge, I'm absolutely here to help you succeed, and I would absolutely love to hear from you. Thanks very much again, and until next time, keep pushing towards your goals and getting better each and every day, my friend.